Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here from simpleprogrammer.com. I don't know whether or not to call this a book review or a fitness video. It's a book fitness video because this is a book review on a fitness book. And I don't do a lot of these because most fitness and diet books suck, especially diet books. The diet books suck. Now, I've done a few of them. You can check out, I'm going to point you to two things. My playlist of book reviews, which you can check out here. And then I'm going to pause and wait. That I'm going to say, and my playlist of fitness videos, since this overlaps here. And what I'm going to be talking about today is a book that was recommended to me quite a few times, but I thought it was too basic for me, to be honest with you. I'll be totally honest with you, because I'm conceited like that in terms of diet. And well, I'm jaded like that because so many diet books suck. They really suck, and they're wrong, and they're bad, and it doesn't work. And a lot of people say, for a lot of things that I say on this channel, by the way, a lot of people like to say, well, you think you know better than the authorities. You think you know better than these people that make it their job to study these type of things, or these studies that show this thing. And you know what? My experience, my teaching, my life, what I believe comes from the Hard Knock School of Experience. So I don't give a shit if you give me some theory or you tell me something is correct. If I try it and it doesn't work, it doesn't matter if it's correct. It's meaningless. It's bullshit. It doesn't matter because it's not applicable, okay? And there's a lot of things that work great in theory, but when the rubber hits the road, they don't work. I'm happy to report that this particular book, have I even mentioned the book yet? Okay, let's mention the book. The book is called The Obesity Code and is by Dr. Jason Fung. Awesome guy. He's pretty funny, by the way. And it is an awesome book. I mean, holy crap. Is this the one book I would recommend more than anything else on diet? I think so. This is very, very good stuff. There's a ton of stuff in this book that, I could do probably an hour-long video on this. I won't, but I want to tell you that the book is really good. And the reason why the book is really good, there's a few different reasons here, and it's very unconventional, and it knocks conventional medicine, conventional dietary guidelines, okay, and bashes the AHA, the American Heart Association, people who I very much dislike because they're full of a lot of shit, okay, for various reasons. Read the book, but I'm not going to get into my own personal beef with them right now, but I will do some videos on it. But here's the thing. He basically breaks down the whole science of obesity, and he's actually shifted my mind on something, right? I've always said that if you want to lose weight, calorie deficit is the main thing. And I still believe that's obviously true. Like, if you think about it, bodybuilders have been losing weight and losing fat for years, and they can get down to 5%, 4% body fat, probably 5% body fat. And so they do it by reducing calories. That's the primary mechanism. But they also eat clean, right? So there isn't a second thing going on there, but they can systematically do this. So there is a component to this. But he convinced me that there's much more to the theory that it's not just calories in, calorie out. And again, I'm not saying that I fully ever believe it's just straight calories in, calorie out, that different calories don't matter. But I did think that the numbers generally added up, and if you're at a deficit, you're going to lose fat. And that's not exactly true according to this book, and I've been resistant to accept that because I want the math to work out. But this book really explains why, and it makes a lot of sense with everything I've seen, everything I've done with diet. Okay, I'm pretty ripped. Okay, I could be more ripped, but I know what I'm talking about here, right? Like I've been dieting. I'm working on diet programs, right? I've been in the fitness industry for quite some time here, but what am I saying here? I was like, man, I need to just have some reason to show my abs on the camera. No, what I'm saying here is this, is that all of this stuff that he's saying in this book, it's like it filled in the missing pieces for a lot of the stuff that I've been seeing as I've been working on my diet and I've been coaching people and seeing the results, right? So a lot of what he says, what this book boils down to is essentially this. This is how I would describe the book, is that what makes you fat. And he's got a ton of studies to back this up, right? Real studies, right, that look at large swaths of data over time that make sense. They're not just total, like, randomized trials of things, right? They're actual conclusive data that shows what he's saying here. But what he says is that insulin is what makes you fat, right? So the hormone insulin, that's what your pancreas secretes. And generally, we've thought that the pancreas secretes insulin in response to glucose in the blood, to a higher blood sugar level. And that's partially true, but he says that that doesn't account for all the insulin secretions. And so there's been a few fundamental things here. So I want to try to explain very briefly, and you'll have to read the book to really get a good explanation of this, because this is a difficult thing to just explain, which is basically, his premise is essentially this. When you eat things that jack up your insulin, and your insulin is elevated for lengthy amounts of time, what ends up happening is that certain cells in your body, like your liver cell, okay, like your liver cells, become insulin resistant. And part of the reason why they do that is because that the body adapts, right? If you're in a high insulin environment, some of your cells are going to become insulin resistant. Your liver is where the glycogen or the glucose extra gets stored, and how it processes the glucose in your system, right? So there's a lot of reasons. I'm not getting into the technical details too much there. But the point is this, is that when you're bathed in insulin all the time, you develop insulin resistance in, let's say, that your liver, okay? But not necessarily in your fat cells. And so what happens when you have insulin resistance in your liver? Well, your body needs to secrete more insulin in order to store the glucose it needs to in your liver. And when it secretes more insulin, it affects the entire body, so your fat cells absorb more blood glucose as well, right? And so if you're constantly eating sugar and you have a high insulin level, then that's going to get stored more easily. And so what it comes down to is this idea that insulin makes you fat, and the primary thing that's raising your insulin is probably fructose, especially high fructose corn syrup. And one of the reasons why is because the only place that fructose can be used in the body is in the liver. It has to be processed by the liver. The liver can only store about 200 grams of this stuff, or 200 grams in general of glycogen, of carbohydrates, if you will. And most things contain fructose. Table sugar is 50% fructose and 50% 50% fructose and 50% glucose, okay? And, yes, I just want to make sure it wasn't dextrose. It doesn't matter. The point is that it's fructose is 50% of the level there, and high fructose corn syrup is obviously mostly fructose, right? So, if not 100% fructose. And so the idea is that we're constantly eating fructose, right? And we're constantly having elevated insulin levels, which is causing us to become insulin resistant and diabetic. And this creates this cycle, which makes things worse as insulin levels rise more and your body becomes more and more resistant, and you become more and more diabetic and more fat. So that's why we're fat. And it makes perfect sense from everything I understand about the science, and I've studied tons on nutrition. I've read so many books on nutrition and science and on diet and health and all of these things, read so many studies, I've experimented so much with this. This makes sense. One other really key piece of information that was in the book, which, I mean, when you think about this, it explains why this happens and why it becomes harder for you to lose fat over time as you become more insulin resistant, okay? And then the other thing that he talked about in here, which I wasn't 100%, I'm still not 100% sure on, but man, I've been getting good results since I tried this, which is he said that artificial sweeteners, you know, I mean, he's against them, I think perhaps because they're artificial to some degree, but he said that they have an insulinogenic response. And so I've always looked at the glycemic index and said, okay, well, things that raise your blood sugar, those are things that raise insulin levels. Nope, sorry, fructose actually does not raise your blood sugar very much, but it raises your insulin a lot. Artificial sweeteners, the same thing. Sucralose, aspartame, right? A few of these, even stevia raises your insulin level, okay, if not your blood sugar. And so I was fasting, okay? I was doing a lot of things in my diet, but I would put stevia in my coffee, or I'd drink a Diet Coke or something like that. And here I am probably increasing my insulin level. And so I'm sort of counteracting some of the benefits of that fast. So there's a lot of interesting things there. And since I read this book, I cut out all artificial sweeteners from my diet as much as possible. So I don't put anything in my coffee. I don't drink diet sodas, none of that, not even stevia soda, any of that. It's really made a drastic impact on my lifestyle, and I'm seeing results. My weight is dropping. I'm feeling better. I'm getting more cut much more faster by doing that, as I just demonstrated as I lifted up my shirt. But you see what I'm saying is that there's a lot of things that this book really, for me, it fills in the gaps, okay? And it's explained in a very good way. It makes a lot of sense. There's a few other things that we could talk about in the book. And then another thing, that he's a big proponent of fasting. And like you might know, I eat 1 meal a day. You can check out the video I've done, or I should have like a 1 meal a day playlist. But anyway, you can check out my videos and stuff on eating 1 meal a day and why I do that. But I've been fasting for 3 years, like doing this for 3 years basically. And I've had the best results that I've ever had. And if you think about it, this is the cure to this insulin resistance, because if it's a virtuous cycle, and becoming insulin resistant causes your body to produce more insulin when you eat things that have an insulinogenic response, then it causes them to become more insulin resistant. So how do you break that cycle? Well, if you fast, if you stop eating for long enough time to have low enough insulin levels in your body, then your body becomes less insulin resistant, and you just have to have those fasting periods in order to accomplish that, which makes perfect sense, and it's worked for me, and I've seen the results with that. So that's all I got to say about that. I think that's enough of a review. I didn't want to get too much into the science, and I was trying not to lift up my shirt and show my abs, but I couldn't resist it, If you like this video, if you want to subscribe and make sure you don't miss any videos, make sure you click the bell below. Click the subscribe, but click the bell to make sure that you don't miss any videos when they come out. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.